Tanks. Big bulky walls that are hard to kill and sometimes have thorns and sometimes assassinate you. Recently, tank players got cool shiny items that you might want to try out. For all of you new tanks embarking on the journey of the wall, I'm going to go through every legendary and mythic tank item and cover what it does for you and when you might want to build it. This will also be useful for everyone else because you'll have to fight tanks at some point. Before we get into it, keep in mind that tank items are some of the most situational. Armor won't do anything if the enemy does mostly magic damage, and the same goes for magic resist and attack damage. For that reason, I'll put a link of the list of champions and the type of damage they do in the description. I recommend using that in the loading screen to check what resistance you need to build. Anyway, let's get into it. Anathema's Chains allows you to choose an enemy as your nemesis. Every second for the next 30 seconds, you receive 1% damage reduction from your nemesis. Once it hits 30 stacks, your nemesis gets minus 20% tenacity, making them more susceptible to crowd control abilities when you are nearby. This is a good item if there's a soul carry on the enemy team that is way more fed than their teammates, or if there's someone like an assassin who you don't want to be able to play the game. Frozen Heart is an armor item that is great to build against champions that rely on auto attacks. It freezes your enemy's hands, reducing the attack speed of nearby enemies and reducing the damage you take from auto attacks. Winter's Approach gives you bonus health equal to 8% of your maximum mana. Additionally, hitting an enemy gives you bonus mana until you hit 360 bonus mana from the item, at which point the item transforms into Fimble Winter. When you slow or immobilize an enemy, Fimble Winter converts a percentage of your mana to a shield for 3 seconds. This item is good if you find yourself constantly running out of mana and can be used for the extra HP. Do be careful though, if you proc your shield before getting into the thick of a fight, you'll lose a lot of value. Thornmail is the tank's way of reducing healing. It is an armor item that damages enemies that auto-attack you, while also applying grievous wounds, which reduces healing by 25%. Immobilizing an enemy reduces their healing by 40%. This is good against champions with a lot of healing that rely on auto-attacks, such as someone like Bel'Veth. Turbo Chem Tank is a magic resist item for Sonic cosplayers. You can activate it to get 40% movement speed for 4 seconds towards enemies. Once you are near an enemy, or when the movement speed buff ends, you slow all nearby enemies for 1.5 seconds. This is a good item if you're against a lot of long-ranged enemies, or don't have any gap closers to get onto anyone. Sunfire Aegis is an armor item. When you take or deal damage, it starts burning nearby enemies for a percentage of your bonus HP. Every time it deals damage, it adds a stack, increasing its damage by 10% up to 6 stacks. This item is good on tanks that need the extra damage instead of protection. It is best on champions like Scion or Cho'Gath that have high amounts of bonus HP built into their kit. Knight's Vow is a tank item for supports, not top laners. You can designate a teammate as worthy. You redirect 10% of the damage taken by the worthy teammate to you, and you heal yourself for 7% of the damage that they deal. This is a good item if you are a tank support and have a fed squishy carry champion on your team. Just make sure you can handle tanking the extra damage. Spirit Visage is a fun magic resist item that increases your healing by 25%. This is a must buy on any healing reliant tank like Maokai or Dr. Mundo, if the enemy has enough AP damage to justify it. Force of Nature is a magic resist item for when the enemy has too much magic damage. It gives you a flat 70 magic resist, but the passive is the big part. Taking magic damage or immobilizing enemies gives you stacks. When you hit 6 stacks, you get 25% reduced magic damage, and a 10% movement speed boost. This is a great item if the enemy does mostly magic damage, especially if you need a boost to catch up to them. Deadman's Plate is another zoomy item, but this time for armor. When moving, you build up to 40 extra move speed, and your next attack does bonus damage. Even more, if you're a melee champion, you get a 50% slow on the enemy that you hit. This item is really big if you're struggling to catch up to an attack damage comp. Abyssal Mask is a magic resist item that gives you mana for taking damage and health for spending mana. Additionally, you reduce the magic resist of nearby enemies the longer that you are around them, simultaneously increasing your own magic resist. This is great for if you're engaging in a lot of extended teamfights, and if both teams have a lot of magic damage. Demonic Embrace is a cheesy item that burns enemies you hit for a percentage of their max HP. It also converts a percentage of your bonus health into ability power. This item doesn't offer much in terms of defense, but if you're already really beefy, and you scale off of ability power, you can get a lot of damage out of this item. Titanic Hydra is a very similar item, but instead of giving you AP based on your bonus health, it gives you attack damage based on your bonus health. Also, instead of burning the enemy, you cleave, creating a shockwave around the targets and dealing a little extra damage. This item is great for giving big slabs of beef a lot of attack damage, and also for clearing minion waves a lot faster thanks to the shockwave. Similar to Demonic though, this offers a lot of damage, but not as much in terms of defense. Warmogs is a unique health item. It allows you to complete a whole pit stop without returning to your base. If you have over 1100 bonus HP, it causes you to regenerate 5% of your HP every second as long as you haven't taken damage within the last 6. This is good if you have a lot of resistances already and have enough HP to make use of the passive. Randuin's Omen is similar to Frozen Heart. It is an armor item that reduces your damage taken by auto attacks. It doesn't reduce auto attack speed, but it does reduce your damage taken by crits, and has an active ability that you can use to slow nearby enemies. Sterak's Gauge is an item that only grants HP, but it gives you 50% of your base AD as attack damage, and gives you a shield when your health is low. This is a good item if you're playing a strong early game champion that has high base stats. Gargoyle Stoneplate is a capstone resistance item. It grants high armor and magic resist, but also gives you the Fortify passive. Every time you take damage, you get a stack of Fortify that gives you 5% more armor and magic resist. You can also activate it to get a large shield that scales off of your bonus HP. This is a great item to build as one of your last, if the enemy team has a solid mix of damage types. Okay, time to move to the juicy part. Let's look at the mythics. To start, we have Jack Shao. Jack Shao is good for extended fights when you need resistances. It gives bonus resistances every second that you are in a fight, increasing up to 8 stacks. At 8 stacks, you get a percentage increase in your resistances and a small quick HP drain on nearby enemies. Effin Shroud is a tank item for supports. It increases damage taken by enemies when you immobilize them. At the moment, the item is pretty bad compared to other support items, but if your team has a lot of burst and you're able to engage to start fights, go for it. Iceborne Gauntlet is an armor mythic that has a similar purpose to Turbo Chem Tank. Instead of speeding you up, it slows enemies down when you hit them. This slowing attack also does a little bit more damage. Get this if you need to stick onto enemies. Locket is a defensive support item. It grants nearby allies resistances and has an active that gives you a shield. Get this if you need help protecting allies from high damage enemies. Heartsteel is a really fun item that infinitely scales. When you are near enemies, it charges over 3 seconds. Once it finishes, you can auto-attack the enemy and deal 6% of your HP as damage. 10% of this damage is added to your health permanently. This, in turn, makes the next proc of this item even stronger, giving you even more health. It is a powerful cycle of becoming a 10 billion HP Giga Chad Tank Bruiser Assassin. This item is great for champions that scale off of bonus HP, or champions that can consistently proc it. However, it does make your early game weak, as the components that build it only give you HP and some ability haste. And some champions like Vayne do a percentage of your HP as damage, so they will still melt you no matter how much HP you can get. But it's worth it for the fun. You can go out into the world and become the biggest wall you've ever wanted to be. Lastly, Radiant Virtue is a defensive mythic that increases your max HP by 10% when activated, and heals you and all nearby allies, decreasing the cooldown of your team's non-ultimate abilities. This is a really dependent item on the champions that your teammates are playing, so I wouldn't bother with it until you learn how the other champions work, or if you are just using a guide. Please don't forget to check the damage type of your enemy before picking out a build. You don't want to be caught with your pants down with the wrong kind of resistance. It is a lot of information that I boiled down, so if you have any specific questions, please comment and I will be happy to expand. Have a good day, evening, or night, or whatever it is where you are. Thank you for stopping by, but I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time.